So we got some speakers today that have are working while cruising. It's not an easy thing to do, and they'll talk about that a little bit. It's definitely finding a balance of, work and life. Sometimes it even gets harder when there's so much life happening around you while you're cruising. So our speakers today are Thomas. Thomas lives aboard, works aboard. Yeah, cool. Sean, Seattle native, or you lived there for a long time at least, yeah. And just took the leap recently to be a year ago, okay, to working aboard, and Katie, who balances working and momming and all from the boat. So yeah, I'll let them take it, and then we'll do a Q&A. Cool.
Hi everyone, nice to see you guys all today. So I'm Katie. I'll kind of just give you a little background on our cruising life, the type of work I do, how we manage that with a child on board, and then if I have time or if you have questions later, some of our future passive income and remote work goals. So yeah, I moved on board in 2017 with my husband Mike. He was a big sailor before we met. He, on his first boat, sailed to New Zealand and then sold a boat. And once we met, he kind of introduced me to cruising life and boat life. So we've been living on board and kind of doing the up and down the East Coast, Bahamas, since 2017. So we have a couple different types of work. The first is seasonal work. So we have a Christmas tree business, which is just 3 months a year. It's great. That's actually how he funded his first journey to New Zealand, and he would he would work for 3 months a year, leave while he left the boat, sail for the rest of the year, and then kind of come back, and that's how he hopped to New Zealand. And so when we met, he asked me to kind of bring this online and make it more of a delivery service. So now we offer Christmas tree delivery, setup and removals, and it really is just a great way to have that freedom and flexibility. You can really sustain the lifestyle, and if you're living simply, we could live off that income if we really wanted to. Now we have a child, so trying to make it just be a little bit more financially secure. But it is definitely really long hours, a lot of stress. We're trying to make as much as we can in those 3 months, and then also just owning a business and finding reliable staff that can work for us is really challenging, because everyone who's based locally and is quality worker tends to have a job that's full time. So we actually have found that working with other sailors or surfers or people who want to travel and work really, really hard, make a lot of money, and then go travel are really our best employees. So that is one of our small businesses. And then 2 years ago, I also joined a startup, which is very much more corporate America. It is not it's not even just a 9 to 5. It's definitely more than a 9 to 5, because it is a high growth startup. So I am the operations lead there, and it's a fully remote company, which is great. It makes boat life and working from the boat a lot easier, because I don't have to show up and be in the office, and people aren't wondering where I am. Everyone is remote. It's nice to have that stability, and making sure that we have healthcare for our family, and just a salary to give my partner more flexibility with building some of our other future income streams. And I will say it is a really big challenge working in just a startup job that is a lot it's just a little bit more stressful from the boat, because we don't have that flexibility. The weather doesn't wait for you. You can't just plan to sail every weekend. So we do kind of have to break up our sailing and our cruising. My husband will do a lot of our sails, and I'll fly and meet him. right now, just because otherwise it would take us like months to get up and down the coast if we were waiting for weather windows on the weekends. And then also with sailing, you know, it just is a lot more work. So all of those like chores and everything that like you might be able to do during the week in a house like gets pushed to the weekend. So it also just like leaves me a lot less free time because weekends are more like, let's either sail to the next destination or we will like do our laundry, which takes all day on a boat versus, you know, 1 hour at night. So, and then just the FOMO, like seeing like everyone out, you know, if people are like in the water or spearfishing, like there's my husband and son like out all day while I was stuck behind a computer. So you just miss out on a lot, but you kind of live for the sunsets, and it's still better working from a computer in the Bahamas and then having that like hour or two a day in paradise than you know, being stuck somewhere else. But yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge is just childcare right now. So luckily my husband has a little bit more flexibility with his jobs. So when we are in a place like the Bahamas, you know, he's kind of dad on duty full time because I have zero flexibility with my job. It's also really difficult. Just, you know, we're finding like babysitters sometimes, or, you know, when we're in a house, we do have daycare. But it ends up being more expensive because we're kind of like pulling him in and out and just trying to figure out childcare wherever we are. And yeah, also just finding a quiet workspace. Like the only place in our boat that has a door is the head. And so like there have been so many meetings that I have taken sitting on the head because like, you know, we can't keep him off the boat all day, and I have Zoom calls like for half the day sometimes. So luckily, like none of my coworkers are boaters, so they don't really like recognize that the background is a head. But yeah, this is like it's not my regular office, but this when my son's on the boat, that tends to be my office. And then just like some of our other future goals, we are trying to kind of have a few more passive income streams through real estate. My husband also has like another small business where he's building catamarans. We have a few other things that down the road, maybe I won't, you know, be working a corporate job the entire time we're cruising, but that's kind of my story. So I'll turn it over.
All right, so I'm going to make some assumptions that everyone is here for kind of the same reason that we're doing what we're doing. We're not fabulously independently wealthy. Okay, I work for a living still. I keep the day job, but I work to live. I don't live to work. My focus is on trying to have as much fun as I can possibly have while I'm here. Make the memories, experience the people, go to the places. But I work in corporate America still. I work for a software company as an individual contributor. I'm not a manager. I'll touch on that a little bit more. But it is corporate America, so there are those expectations on both sides. They expect me to perform, and I expect them to pay me. Right? Not unreasonable expectations. If they stop paying, I'm going to stop working. That's just as simple as it is. But it comes down to a really specific thing. What is it I want? Why am I doing this? And that's the question that I would encourage each of you to ask yourselves. What is it you want out of this adventure? Why are you here to figure out how to work and cruise at the same time? And those questions are the ones that drive us. What is it that you want out of this life? To get there, you're going to ask the question, what job should I get? I can't answer that question. But I can tell you some of the things that are important to keep in mind. Being able to work remotely and support your lifestyle in the way that you want to live is the key. What is it you want? How much comfort do you want? If I had started this when I was 22, man, I would not want the same level of comfort I have now. I've gotten used to having nice things and eating well and being able to spend some money. At 22, it was a different story. Where you are in your journey, you've got to measure that and decide, what is it you're after? What do you need to be happy and enjoy this life? And so, I'm not going to lead a team. I'm not going to manage people. I've done that in my career, but I know the amount of extra time that takes means that I can't go have fun with my friends. After work, I've got to do performance reviews. I've got to go through all of the crap that is being a manager. And that's going to cut into my playtime. I don't want to do that. FOMO, I will tell you right now, it's real. If you're working from your boat and your friends are out snorkeling or kite surfing or surfing or going for a hike or just having a beer in the middle of the day and I'm on a Zoom call, yeah, that's real. You have to balance that. But you have to decide again, what is it you want? I mean, what Katie was saying is you get that couple hours in the evening and it really counts. And it's amazing because you still are in that beautiful place, having that adventure. For us, we really settled down. So my partner, Jerry, was a nurse. She's retired now because you can't really nurse this lifestyle. For me, I work software product manager. I can do this from anywhere in the world. Technology is a whole different conversation, and I'm not going to get into it now. If you guys want to talk with me one-on-one about technology, probably any of us, we're all doing it, and we can get into that deep, what works, what doesn't, why. Let's do that separately. So if you take the job, like I have corporate America, there are some specific challenges related to being in corporate America and not being in an office. As remote work became more prevalent during COVID, we found that there are some really specific things that happen. You lose visibility with leadership. I have to work really hard for people to know that I exist. I've been at this company 10 years, which if you know anything about technology, anybody who stays at the same company for 10 years either has failed, there's something mentally wrong with them, or they found the thing that absolutely drives them, they love it, and they don't want to go. And I'm the third. I've been super successful, but God, I love the company, and I love what we do, and I love the mission. But if I want to be visible, every Zoom call, I'm on video, and I have to actively participate. I have to go above and beyond to maintain my employment, not to get a promotion or a raise, just to maintain visibility. And that really counts. Your work relationships. You guys probably all realize that we build relationships, we bond to each other over food and drink. That's the most common way that humans bond. If I'm remote, I cannot have that bond with my coworkers. So virtual happy hours, it's a thing. Friday, beers. I might be by myself drinking a beer on the camera, chatting with my coworkers to try and build that bond. It also means extra one-on-one time with people I might not otherwise really want to hang out with because my buddies are out surfing and I'm not. But instead I'm going to have that one-on-one time with my peers so I can build those relationships. The opportunities that come your way as a remote employee for a big company are going to be fewer, they're going to be less important and less critical, and you are going to have to crush every one of them. If you fail to absolutely nail it, you will be viewed as somebody who isn't really engaged, no matter how unimportant the opportunity seems, and you also won't get as many of them. You have to create them, you have to grab them, you have to chase them, otherwise you're going to get left behind. All of this to say, the challenge of working remotely, it's real. You have to really work harder to live in that beautiful place, on that beautiful boat, and have that lifestyle that everybody looks like this. God, you got it made. You're living the dream. And you say, I really am living the dream, but I'm working the butt off for it. No way around that. Other challenges that are specific to cruising. The weather doesn't wait for you. You have a meeting, and you can't miss the meeting. You need to move the boat because there's weather coming. You have to plan ahead, and you've got to move that boat ahead of time so that you can be in a safe place to do your meeting. It also means that both of the sailors or all of the sailors on the boat who are responsible have to be able to fill in for each other. Jerry and I work really hard to make sure that we can each do each other's jobs on the boat. If we need to go somewhere, can you get the boat off anchor and take off and meet us? Can I go to that? Whatever jobs have to be done, we've got to be able to back each other up. We have to be absolute equals. And also happy to be dependent on each other and be dependent on and plan for that, expect it, assume it. Nothing's free, right? The other thing about this, you can do it inexpensively, but depending on what you're after, what kind of boat you're on, how big the boat is, the lifestyle you want to live, how you like to eat and drink, all of those costs are going to add up. And so choosing the job and the lifestyle and finding that balance, finding passive income opportunities where you can, Coming to the boat show to get deals at boat show, because man, that's real. If you're walking around buying anything, you know that's real. But getting that balance is absolutely the key. It's absolutely the key. Ultimately, I think that you're trying to figure out how to make a decision about what it is you want to do and how you can do it. We lived aboard in Seattle, in Shoal Bay, on a powerboat for 4 years before taking the next step. And I will tell you, living aboard on a dock is really convenient. It's really secure. Your power is taken care of. Your water's provided. You're tied to a dock that somebody else is responsible for. You're behind a breakwater, so when the weather gets really crappy, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. You need groceries. The store's not very far away. And that means you don't have to focus on those things while focusing on your day job. It means that you can have a good life. We were weekend warriors. Jerry would get off work, the boat would be started up, and she would step on the boat, untie, and we would leave for the weekend. And then we would come back, tie up, and be ready for work. And we did that for 4 years, and it was amazing. And it set us up to realize that this is the lifestyle we wanted, so that we could make that choice and say, when we do this, we can fully commit and fully go, and we know what we're getting into. We know how bad it is when the toilet blows up, which, seriously, the toilets can blow up. When the engine leaks oil in the bilge, and you're down there scrubbing oil out of the bilge that you can barely get into, and it's 160 degrees down there. That's just life. That's what you're going to do. But on the flip side of that, you're going to get these unbelievable views, and you're going to live this lifestyle that other people aren't committed to. They're not doing it. You get to have that adventure. You get to scratch that itch. The other side of it, of course, it is the job. You've got to commit to and understand what you're going to get out of the job and where you're going to go. This is not a path to upward mobility in a company, right? It just isn't. If you recognize that going in and accept it, you can have a really good time. I think that's my last slide. That's my last slide. So, thanks guys.
Hello there, I'm Thomas. Some people call me Team Money.
Team Money!
I do some social stuff here and there, but not really that much for posting on it. I was employed with a tech company, a Silicon Valley tech company, from 2015 through January, and I was able to transition from an in-person role to a fully remote role with that company. Luckily, it's easy, more easier to do that in tech, not so much in different roles, so I can't really speak if you're outside of that industry. I was able to purchase a Beneteau 37 in 2020 and moved aboard. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I want to get off the dock. I was here in the Southwest Wharf in DC for about 6 months. And I'm like, I bought the boat to go sailing. I wanted to get out and cruise. And so I started the process with the company by talking with my lead. I approached them. They had a remote work policy before COVID, but of course they implemented one for COVID, a little bit more flexible, temporary remote. But yeah, by communicating with my lead, by talking to them and discussing my plans and my goal, I was able to transition to a different project in which I could be fully remote. I did not need to be on site, I did not need to travel the world like I was, going to customer facilities. And I set off. I was able to sail the East Coast. As both Katie and Sean had mentioned, there is a lot that I did not expect that happened. I had to work full time. I had to be on the boat. I needed to fulfill my job and my roles. And that meant weather waits for no one. You have to plan very well. You have to choose your windows where you can. And you end up traveling most of the time after hours, and you lose your personal time of living your life. And so trying to balance work and life was a huge struggle. I found some tricks. I found a few little tricks that helped work around those challenges. Go out in the morning. Go for a few hours. Sunrise, get up early, get out, trying to explore and enjoy your life, then dial in 8, 9, be a little late. It's okay. Again, Silicon Valley tech company, so we worked a lot of long hours, a lot of off hours. It was very flexible,
And the reason why I'm able to do this flexibility is I communicate with the team. And I let them know, like, hey, I'm going for a walk or a dinghy ride out along the beach or something. And I'll be back. Like, it's totally reasonable for you to get up and get away from the computer during the day. You don't have to be at the system all the time. On top of that, you normally have a computer with you. And assuming you have cell service, wherever you are, they can reach you if something's really important. Again, you come on back, you finish your day, you do a little bit of work, and then you try to go out and enjoy your life. So I would say 3 main points that I would recommend for anybody considering this or wanting to move towards this. You have to have a passion for a dream. After that passion, you need to have the persistence to chase that dream. And a little bit of work. Realistically a lot of work. I ended up selling the boat last year, and I bought a van. I wanted to see more of the States, and I was ready to set off international, so it's like, let me sell the boat, see if anyone was interested, get the van, go chase snow, go snowboarding, travel the country, been all over, and I was able to just continue that with my job. They didn't need to know, but I absolutely shared it with everybody. It is your choice whether you want to really communicate with your colleagues, your coworkers, if you're going to be on a boat, where you're going to be traveling or and wandering about. But as long as you're able to stay in touch, that's really the important aspect. As long as you're able to fulfill your responsibilities and communicate well with your team. And fun things can happen. You can end up at raft ups and flocellas and exumas. So just get out there. That's really it. You just need to get out there. And that's it.
Thanks, guys. Whoa. Cool. All right, so we got a few minutes for questions. Yeah, let's just fire away. First question.
When you're doing Zoom calls, what's kind of wrong with you doing that?
So the question was, when you're doing Zoom calls, people on the Zoom meeting, can they tell, or do you get seasick?
Yeah, well, I know when they tell trying to
So are there jealousy issues with coworkers? Does it get awkward that you're on the boat? Are they like, why are you working from a boat?
This goes louder. We're on a cat, so it's fairly stable unless it's, really bad out. I feel like they can't really tell on Zoom that I'm rolling around. Really, it's if Starlink cuts out, that's where my heart drops. So, it cuts out for 20 seconds. 20 seconds is a long time on a Zoom call, especially when, people are like, okay, all my coworkers know I work from a boat, but, I'm expected to have reliable connectivity. So you miss something for 20 seconds, that could be a really important task that, got delegated to you. So that's where I struggle. I have met other cruisers who have some great rigs. So if Starlight comes out, they'll pull in from the cell service, but
So my coworkers and my employer know that I'm working from a boat, and they love it and they hate it. Right? There's absolute jealousy, but it's good jealousy. And I also always use a Zoom background, so it's not my live background. I always use an AI background that's one of our company, pictures that they've approved and want on there. That said, the whole concept of whether or not you inform your employer that you're doing this or not, that's your call. But the risk that goes along with not telling them can be really, really big, and like termination big. And so I've been up front, and they're totally cool with it. They get it. We do have some rules I have to follow, so I've got to touch base with HR about certain things, make sure that the country that I'm in is okay for me to be in, because at our company, there's some countries that are, I can't go there. There are other places where I can only go for a certain amount of time for tax reasons. So you have to do that. But on the Zoom side, they're good. They don't care.
Yeah, I can speak to rolling. They don't see you move. You're physically seated at the galley or at your table, wherever you're at. If the boat's rolling, you're not moving, the boat is. And so you're moving with the boat. The thing that you'll notice, my blinds, my drapes, anything hanging around in my background.
Fruits. Yeah.
So that's really the big thing. And yes, they hate it. I've taken numerous meetings, Zoom calls, or Teams and out in the cockpit in the blue waters of the Bahamas. Yeah, they hate it.
It's a good point that you touched on there. That is making sure you're not breaking any laws with your work, and making sure that you don't put your company, whether you're self-employed or you work for a company, in a really bad spot with taxes, because you can trigger real tax implications for a company that all of a sudden goes beyond just your paycheck and into the entire company's tax ramifications. So. Right.
Can I use backups for Starlink?
Does anybody use backups for Starlink's the question?
No. Simple as that. Here's what we found with Starlink. On our boat, everywhere we've been, which was Guatemala, Belize, Mexico, Bahamas, Florida, Puget Sound, Seattle area, it has been flawless, and capability is fantastic, except in a really hard downpour, and then it just stops. So if it rains truly hard, while that rain's coming down, forget about it. You're not going to get out or get in. Plan for that and let people know, hey, I've got a really bad storm coming. I'm going to lose internet, and you get around it.
Isn't that the same for people on land?
Yep.
So,
Starlink is the same no matter where you go.
and depending on what kind of work you do, there are definitely people some that do backups.
Yeah. I was gonna say Nina and Tom have a backup.
Yeah, Nina and Tom do a backup. Carolyn and I work from the boat, and the Starlink draws so much power. We're not lithium, and so we will a lot of times just use our phone hotspots. So we have a really great plan with Verizon because we're only in the Bahamas. So yeah.
I'm just curious, like time zone differences, like scheduling meetings, and like if that is, you forget what time zone you're in, or
Question was time zone differences. Are there issues as you travel and move in and out of time zones and keeping everything on scheduled time zones? But
I've been in the same Eastern time zone, so I'm not happy to host.
Okay. I primarily work in Pacific time zone, and we are currently in Virginia, which means that my day starts at 11 and ends at 8. However, sometimes, because I also am helping India, it ends at 1 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes, because I'm helping in Europe, it starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, in terms of time zones, I try to set boundaries and work within them, and I flex my time accordingly. I don't forget what time zone I'm in, but sometimes I wish I was in Europe.
good question.
You mentioned informing your colleagues and employer of your situation. For those of you who are client facing, do you let them know, or do you kind of keep that to yourselves?
I work with a lot of other B2B partners, and I'm usually pretty open and honest about that. I just find that it's better to be as honest as possible, but maybe I won't share details that don't need to be shared.
In my role, I work with a lot of our customers, but I'm not. It's complicated. So I base that conversation on what makes sense with that client. They're not depending on me to deliver something for them. I'm not building something, or they're not. I'm not on the hook for something, but I'm presenting information. So for my case, if the fact that I live on a sailboat somewhere would be interesting to them, and it's a conversation starter, or it binds us a little bit in some way, like eating or drinking, then I might share a little bit. Otherwise, it generally doesn't come up.
I normally tell them it's not a problem. Most of the time they find it interesting and it's fun and an experience, something different that they've never heard about.
As long as you're delivering. If not, then they're going to use it as the excuse of why you're only delivering, right? All right. We got plenty of time for questions, so anybody got anything else? Yeah.
I have to connect with a VPN for work on internet. Is that ever an issue when you're traveling? No? Okay.
Depends on how your internet is. If you use cell service and you do tethering or like a mobile router, a lot of times those providers actually do some encapsulation of your data, especially if you're international. So when I was in Bahamas, I actually did have some problems with my VPN in order to get back, and it was due to the cell service. There are ways to resolve that, but normally you work with your tech department, your IT, and your company, and they should be able to resolve it.
I've also had a couple issues. It's usually like with one or two like government-run sites, so that you just can't access from another country with or without a VPN. So that has been a bit problematic, and definitely like look into any sites that may have those restrictions.
I think it often depends on how the VPN is configured for your company. So for mine, from tethering my cell phone anywhere in the world, not a problem. Starlink anywhere in the world, not a problem. But it's because they planned for that, right? They anticipate it.
Great question.
Can you talk a little bit about how taxes work when you're in other jurisdictions?
Like you.
The question was a little bit about taxes when you're outside of the States.
Yeah, so I actually have a limit with my company. I can't be out for more than 3 months a year, or 4 months a year. So I think that's our limitation.
So every company is different. Our company has offices globally. We're all over the world. I'm a U.S. employee. I pay U.S. taxes. I don't pay taxes in other countries. That said, there are limits for certain countries, so they can be for 30 days max, 45 days max, and then I have to get out of that country for 24 hours, and then come back in. But it completely depends on the company and what the country is and what the agreements are. So you have to really dig deep on that to get it right.
Do you pay taxes in those other countries too?
The question was, do I pay taxes in those other countries? No. Because I'm a U.S. employee, I'm being paid in U.S. dollars by a U.S. corporation. All of my taxes are being paid to the U.S. IRS and associated entities.
You could trigger that though if you stay too long, or if you need to be careful. And there's also ways you can benefit from foreign earned income if you're out of the country for 330 or 360 days, and you can still work for a U.S. company. But that starts to get complicated. You got to do that right because you're literally paying no federal income tax.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to get audited.
You mentioned the 4 years or 7 or rather 6 months living in the dollar. What other ways do you see that people can sort of take it step by step, prototype, especially if they haven't sailed long distance in a long time? What are ways to do this gradually?
So the question was, are there ways to kind of gradually step into this, dip your toes in the water, no pun intended, and kind of figure it out before taking a big giant leap?
I mean, we spent a while we spent like a couple months a year on the dock doing seasonal work, and then we would do kind of like short jumps down the East Coast, and then we would kind of expand from there and take a jump over to the Bahamas. And so we just kind of hopped up and down the East Coast and over to the Bahamas and back. But as far as like the shorter weekend and smaller steps, I think might be better.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it's like life. When you're a teenager, you get out of high school, maybe you go to college, maybe you don't go to college, but your first apartment's pretty small, pretty cheap. And you make incremental steps throughout your life, going bigger, more complex, more expensive. We had 3 kids, we had a big house, all the dirt that you have to manage that goes along with that. As the kids grew, got out of high school, went to college, and suddenly we're in this huge house with 1 kid left. Well, yeah, we should downsize this, so to a condo. And so it's the incremental steps that get you there. On the boat, it is a little bit different. And so maybe the start is first, are you sailing or cruising at all? And if you're not, do that first. Don't even bother thinking about the work part. Just go get on the water and see if you like it. And if you don't, well then problem solved. You don't have to figure out that answer. But if you love it, then you got a much bigger problem. Because now you have to figure out how to do it. But again, start with a day, right? Go somewhere for a long weekend where you have a day of work afterwards. Start on Friday or Thursday night, and then work Friday, and then have Saturday, Sunday free to get back to the dock. But it is, you pick incremental steps that you can eat that aren't going to choke you, and that really is the key.
Yeah, and then at some point you just got to rip the Band-Aid off.
That's no joke.
Yeah. All right. Tax question.
So, if that you're paying federal taxes, as far as state taxes, if you're living on the boat, where
A great question. So the question was, and I'm saying this again for the camera really, when you're on the boat, obviously you're paying federal income taxes, but if you, what about state taxes and how do you do that? So, and definitely, I'll pass the mic, but the biggest question there is, do you still maintain a residence too?
Yeah, so we still maintained a permanent residence, so I was paying state tax where that permanent residence was.
So first and most importantly, we're not tax advisors. Please see your tax professional before you make any decisions about what you might do with taxes. I live in Washington State. There is no state tax. I do keep a mailbox in Washington State, but that's it. We got rid of all the dirt, the business. We have a mail service that collects our mail. That's it. We don't have any cars there, nothing. So depending on where you are, pick a state with no state income tax, and then you're golden.
Yeah, great question.
I'm curious if any of you are cruising and working with children and how you're potentially managing that with
We both are, but I'll pass it off to Katie.
It's a challenge. That's definitely the hardest part. Yeah, just because luckily my husband has a little bit more flexibility with his work. So when we are in a place like the Bahamas, he's full-time, like dad on duty, but you know, there's times where like the water maker breaks and I have meetings and it's like he's trying to fix the water maker and I'm, you know, so we have water and I'm trying to work and, you know, we just don't have that help. So it's, that's really like the biggest challenge. And then we kind of are up and down the East Coast. We work with like someone who's a babysitter for him when we're kind of like stationed in an area for like a longer period. We also have a house in Florida now, and so when we're there for, you know, part of the year, he'll go into daycare. But yeah, having one parent who has a more flexible job is just, or you know, is really key. Or having friends that want to come and help out. That was, you know, we crammed our boat this winter, and we had 3 people staying with us, and it was just everyone helping, doing everything. And yeah, Logan and Caroline, I think, also have a really challenging situation.
Yeah, we're both full-time, and it's...
and 2 kids.
And 2 kids. Not that 2's better than 1.
No.
how old?
3 and 6. So we have to figure out, when we're cruising, we have to flip-flop. So typically I'll take morning duty, our kids wake up really early, get them on the boat, get them on a dinghy, go fishing, something, watch the sunrise because they're up that early. And I'll take them till 9. And then Caroline will do 9 to noon. And then I'll do noon to 3, and she'll do 3 to 6. It's not easy, and it makes the days longer, but it's the only way to get 6 full hours of work in and then try to catch up, you know, on other things later. But it's hard. It's definitely hard with the kids.
Yeah, structure. Structure is like, for me, like the most important part, I think.
Yeah. And then finding the balance, that's just work and watching the kids. Then you really need to find some time to cook a decent meal. Or go do some yoga, or go for a run, or do something to stay healthy, because cruising can get unhealthy really fast if you're not careful, if you don't get off the boat and take care of yourself. So you have to carve out that time for yourself too.
Are you homeschooling the 6-year-old?
Are we homeschooling the 6-year-old? I'll just take that. You're not school age quite yet. So the state of North Carolina, most states of people I've talked to with young kids, have a threshold of 7 usually, where you have to prove to the state that you're homeschooling. We actually have to show them the curriculum and they have to test. We did homeschool. Our teachers were really good about just giving us, when we essentially unenrolled them from school, they gave us a packet of stuff. Kindergarten's pretty easy. It's like shapes and 50 sight words. He definitely got behind. He's behind on reading when he got back to school. But
he's fine.
He's fine. He's going to be good. So yeah, we did, for part of the day when Caroline and I were switching off, there was like a 3-hour block in there that she did school. And they sat down and did that. It wasn't a strict curriculum.
I was gonna say, but only like an hour of that was actual school. We would do like art projects, then school, and then a field trip, which was like when we would get off the boat and we would go see something on the island or go to the beach and play in the sand, write words in the sand, things like that. So yeah.
The communities are, back to Katie's point too, that communities are a big help. And that's why you'll find places like Georgetown and Exuma, Tortola, these hot spots for kids' boats, because the whole community can kind of rally. A couple parents will take a whole block of kids while other ones work, and you can get a lot of help that way, so you can keep working and have it share the child care a little bit.
How do you look at with long-term planning for when you can't stay on the boat? Kind of like the
Long-term planning, like 20 years out, 30 years out.
Like when you can't physically stay on the boat anymore.
So is that from a financial planning perspective, or like
Well, not just financial, but also like with how, like, if your health goes bad, you can't keep doing this. Like, how do you guys work around that issue?
Yeah, I'll pass that off.
I don't even think about it again.
I mean, my husband always said, like, on his first boat, he met so many people who were much, much older. Like, he started cruising, like, kind of before there were a lot of young cruisers out. And he wanted to do it now while he could. So that was his goal, and that always stuck with me. We really, right now, we're trying to get ourselves established so that we can cruise a little bit more easily with our son in the future. Right now, we are trying to really grow some passive income streams. So we're getting into real estate, and just like some other small businesses. We do have a house too, and right now our goal is to make cruising happen, but we'll probably not be cruising till the end of our lives. So it's just having those passive income streams and financial planning set up.
Okay, so I'm 55. So I'm closer to that. What am I going to do? So we decided we're going to do this as long as we physically can, or until it's not fun anymore. Thank you, Lynn Party. Right? Seriously, if it stops being fun, we're going to stop doing it. But what do we do? How do we manage that? So we're on a 55-foot cap. She's a big boat. There's a lot of space. It's stable, like crazy stable. We're neck deep in a huge refit to make sure that we can single hand that boat. So if I break a leg, Jerry can get us home, right? Or if I die, she can get us home. And let's be realistic, we're out in the middle of the ocean. This is a thing. At some point, we will physically not be able to do anything. I want to get to that point. I don't want to stop before that. But when we get to that point, what do? We sell the boat, right? Maybe I'm going to change my mind between now and then. Right now, I don't want to have crew on the boat to take care of me. That just sounds stupid, right? That's not who we are. Maybe though, when I'm at that point, I change my mind. Say, no, I want to keep going, but let's figure out how to hire a crew to keep us out here. But our thought right now is that we'll stop at some point. We will age out physically and sell the boat and do a show somewhere. Probably not back in the U.S. Just honestly.
Everybody's got a different risk profile too, right?
100%.
So if you really don't want to cut the tie and sell the house, don't sell the house.
Yeah.
Rent it, and your budget for your boat's going to be lower, but you have the safety net back at home. And those are all your decisions, because everybody takes this in their own path, right? That's a great perspective.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. We each have our own journey.
One last question. You want to be the last one? No pressure.
Yes.
All right.
So that actually kind of makes me think about, like, what about regular health care, dental care for kids, for like checkups, for like, colonoscopies for, those of that age?
We had a great chat about this one at this seminar yesterday too. It's obviously it was the same question. People think about it a lot, especially for Americans that aren't used to great insurance experiences and non-universal healthcare. So I'll pass it off though.
Right to me.
Yeah, I get it. So here's what I will say. My experience with healthcare in the United States is an absolute shit show. I hate it. And my experience with healthcare in Guatemala and Mexico and outside the US, I don't need insurance. It's not a big deal. I need a service. I go get a service. It costs me a little bit of fair money, and I get a great service. When I'm back in the US, like now, if I need healthcare and I'm not in Seattle where I had all my primary docs before, finding somebody to give me care here is a lot more complicated. And it takes a lot more effort on my part. I don't enjoy it either. I wish I was in Mexico. So for kids, different story. Kids out there, we didn't do that. But for adults, it's actually easier out of the country.
Yeah, and just to kind of hop on that point, like my husband didn't have healthcare until I started my corporate job. He was on the, if something went wrong, we had travel insurance, but he always thought that healthcare was better in other countries too, and I've had that experience. So he was gonna hop on a plane if he really needed to. With my job, we do have benefits, so my son is fully, our whole family is fully covered, which is part of the reason that I'm also at a corporate job, just to have that, since we are in the States for a good portion of the year. I do think it is a lot easier to access healthcare outside of the US, for adults, for kids, dental for everyone. Even if you have dental insurance in the US, it's probably still cheaper to go to Costa Rica and have a good trip and get dental insurance.
So I'm self-employed. Have always been self-employed, kind of self-employed now. I'm not even really sure, but we have a Geo Blue plan. It's through Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a lot cheaper than an Obamacare plan, but you have to be out of the country 3 months, or at least be planning to be out of the country for 3 months. So there are domestic plans. Mine is backed by Blue Cross Blue Shield. We went through 2 childbirths with the plan. It's cheaper because they expect that at least for 30% or 25% of the year that you're going to be getting cheaper or free care. Genki is one that Brian in the back uses. It's like a travel one. You just need to read that one really carefully. It's only $50 a month, so. But it covers a lot. It does. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, there's a lot of options, and you can always reach out send us an email, and we can give you names of insurance brokers other people have used when they took off. Okay, cool. That was it. Huge round of applause for these speakers. Thank you guys.